My name is Evelyn Morris. I'm 26 years old and I live in a small coastal town in Oregon. I remember that day vividly, a misty, unusually quiet morning in mid-April. I was sitting in front of my computer screen, the glow from my inbox reflecting off my pale, sleep-deprived face. The subject line stood out clearly. Status update on your scholarship application from the Eleanor Bainbridge Fund. I didn't dare click it. I knew what they needed, a simple verification that my education fund was still intact. The money my grandmother, Eleanor, had set aside for me before I could even read. I once believed that fund was my ticket out of this cramped house, out of the noise, out of the shadows. I used to think it was mine. But everything changed last week. I left my room, barefoot, walking across the old wooden hallway that creaked under every step. In the kitchen, my mother was arranging a box full of ribbon samples and floral color charts spread across the dining table, the same table we used to gather around for dinner, now just a staging area for my sister's big day. I stood there quietly for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Mom, can we talk about my college fund?" She didn't look up. She was deciding between two shades of pink that looked nearly identical. "Evelyn, we've been through this. Nicole's wedding is in less than 2 months. I need to focus." I swallowed hard, my voice growing hoarse. "But that money, it was meant for my graduate program. Grandma created that fund for me," she said. "For heaven's sake, don't start with your grandmother again," my mother snapped, finally looking up, her eyes no longer soft like I remembered. "Nicole only gets to be a bride once. College will still be there. People take out loans all the time to go to school." I stood frozen, my fingers gripping the edge of the chair. Every word landed like a blade to the chest. The front door burst open. Nicole walked in, arms full of bags from a bridal gift shop. Her heels struck the floor in sharp beats, like a storm announcing itself. "Mom, you won't believe this. They just got a shipment of personalized bridesmaid boxes. They're gorgeous." Immediately, Mom lit up, pushing aside all her papers to rush over, as if I didn't exist. "Oh my gosh, really? Show me. We need to decide before the weekend." I watched the scene unfold like I wasn't part of it. The bags, the laughter, the admiration directed at Nicole, everything had a place, except me. My scholarship documents were shoved to the edge of the table, one corner now soaked from a sweating glass of iced tea. "I was working on that," I said weakly. "Be careful with my papers." "Oh, sorry," Nicole chirped, not sorry at all. "But look, doesn't the shade of blue go better with the bridesmaid dresses?" I quietly gathered my papers, avoiding Mom's eyes. She didn't even glance at me, too busy studying the bridal gift invoice, as if spending a few $1,000s wasn't even worth mentioning. That evening, I walked into my dad's study. He was sitting beneath the old desk lamp, flipping through tax documents, reading glasses sliding down his nose. "Dad, I need to ask you something. My education fund. Do you know what happened to it?" He sighed, taking off his glasses. "Evelyn, you're smart, you'll get scholarships. Nicole needs this wedding to be perfect. You know how much the Brody family values appearances." "And what about what I need?" I asked, nearly in tears. "Does anyone care what I need?" "You're being overly sensitive," my father said, his voice steady and cold. "This is for the family. Don't be selfish." Family. That word suddenly felt foreign. Distorted. I retreated to my room, my hands trembling as I pulled out the last letter Grandma had written me before she passed. "I've prepared for the worst, just in case you ever need to protect yourself. Don't let anyone take your future from you, Evelyn." I didn't fully understand what she meant back then, but now I was starting to, and I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I sat on the porch as the late April sun filtered through the tall pines, swaying in the chilly breeze. My mind was racing. Mom's words echoed in my head. People take out loans all the time to go to school. That wasn't just a suggestion, it was a verdict. I knew I couldn't keep quiet. My father, Patrick Morris, was a quiet man. But when he chose to speak, his words often ended the conversation. I had never openly defied him, but this time I had to. That night, after dinner, I stood in front of his desk, clutching the scholarship envelope like a final line of defense. Dad, we need to have a real conversation, not some speech about family values. This is about the Eleanor Fund. I need to verify the amount, and it's gone. He put down his napkin and sat back in his chair, facing me directly. No avoidance, no surprise, just fatigue written across his face. Evelyn, you've always been capable. You'll figure it out. But Nicole, she needs a good start, a proper wedding, a strong foundation. I bit my lip until it bled. The way he spoke made it clear I wasn't part of the plan. So my education money can just be spent without even asking me? He shrugged. It was a joint decision. Your mother and I didn't want delays. Nicole has waited long enough. But Grandma left that money for me, I nearly shouted, my voice cracking. Not for some joint decision, and definitely not for Nicole's lavish wedding she couldn't afford herself. He suddenly stood. That's enough. You're talking about a little money, compared to an entire family? That little money was my entire future, I said through clenched teeth. Everything I worked for. I'm not some outsider to be dismissed. He exhaled, turning away. Evelyn, family means sometimes we have to make sacrifices. Not everyone gets to be the priority. I laughed, hollow. You mean I've never been the priority, isn't that right? He didn't answer. The silence said it all. It was the period at the end of a sentence I hadn't written. I turned and left the room. In the hallway, I ran into Nicole. She was on the phone, giggling. Yeah, we booked Lakeview already. VIP suite. Dante loves the private pool. Mom said the deposit's no problem. I stopped, not turning back. Do you know where that money came from, Nicole? What? She frowned, then shrugged. Mom said it was just a temporary advance from the savings fund. Anyway, I'll make it up after the wedding. I turned fully to face her. For the first time, I didn't look away. That savings fund was mine, my education fund, the only dream Grandma ever left me. Nicole scoffed. You always make everything dramatic. How many people even go to grad school? School will still be there. If you're really that smart, there are plenty of scholarships out there. A part of me cracked. Not because of the money, but because of how this family always saw me as the backup option. As if I only had value when I stayed quiet, asked for nothing, and demanded no fairness. You're right about one thing, I said, voice tight. If you're good enough, you'll find a way. But don't forget, the only reason you got this extravagant wedding is because I had nothing left. I turned away, not waiting for a reply. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, holding Grandma's last letter. In it, she had written, not everyone can see people's true colors, but if you hold your ground, you won't fall. I hadn't fallen, but I hadn't gotten back up yet either. Not yet. But I knew I had to do something. And this time, I wouldn't ask for permission. I woke up the next morning with an emptiness that stretched from my chest to my stomach. In the small room I grew up in, everything looked the same. The oak wardrobe Grandma painted herself, the faded sixth-grade family photo above the bed. But I was no longer the same girl. I was no longer the good daughter who stayed quiet, hoping someone would eventually see me. I knew now, if I didn't act, they would continue treating me like a shadow behind Nicole's sparkling wedding gown. I sat at my old desk, pulled out a silver tin box Grandma used to store birthday cards. Inside, between faded photos and scraps of wobbly handwriting, I found exactly what I needed. A yellowing slip of paper with one short line. Evelyn, if one day everything turns against you, call Ms. Hope. I made preparations. It was from my grandmother, Evelyn Morris, the woman who quietly watched everything with steady eyes and a gentle smile. She never said much, but every word she spoke felt weighed and intentional. I remembered once asking her if it was possible to chase a dream when no one supported you. She simply said, yes, but you'll need a plan. And an exit. I turned the paper over. A phone number. The ink had faded, but it was still legible. My hand trembled as I dialed each number. After 3 rings, a woman's voice answered. Firm but not cold. Law Office of Hope Westmore. How may I assist you? I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady. Hi, I'm Evelyn Morris. I believe my grandmother mentioned me. Eleanor Morris. There was a pause. Then the woman's tone softened. Of course, one moment, please. I heard papers being shuffled, then a small click as the line switched. Evelyn, this is Hope Westmore. Her voice was low and assured. It's good to hear from you. Your grandmother and I had some very meaningful conversations. I, I don't even know where to start, I admitted. But I think the thing she was worried about is finally happening. I just found out my parents emptied my education fund. No warning, no discussion. A soft exhale from the other end. I was afraid this day might come. She said she prepared for it. I'm not sure I understand. Is that true? It is. And Evelyn, listen to me carefully. Do not say a word to your parents, not a hint, not even a suggestion. Don't let them know you contacted me. Why? I asked, a chill creeping up my spine. Because what your grandmother left behind isn't just money, it's a legal safeguard, a clause that can be voided if you misstep, and if they find out, they'll try to manipulate it. I gripped the phone tighter, my lips dry. What do I need to do? Meet me. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. at my office, downtown, Portland. Bring any documents related to the fund, letters, bank books, anything your grandmother may have left behind. I nodded, forgetting for a moment she couldn't see me. Yes, I'll be there. And Evelyn? Her voice paused. Your grandmother once told me you were the only one in the family who could see the truth without flinching. Don't prove her wrong. The call ended. I looked out the window, where the first light of day reached across the backyard garden. I could feel something shifting, slow but certain, like a deep current rising beneath layers of rock. I didn't know what awaited me in that lawyer's office tomorrow morning. But I knew one thing. Grandma hadn't sat back in silence like I once thought. She had prepared. And now, it was my turn to step into the battle she left behind. Not to reclaim money, but to reclaim the right to live with dignity. The little bookstore on the corner of 3rd Street was the only place that hired me after I left my teaching assistant job. I couldn't afford to keep that up. The work wasn't hard, but it drained you in quiet ways. Shelving, dusting, inventory, restocking. The smell of old pages and ink clung to my clothes every day. I worked morning shifts from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., grabbed a quick sandwich, then dove straight into scholarship applications, revising every paragraph, rewording every introduction. At night, I pored over the documents Grandma left behind, highlighting sections that could become leads in my meeting with Hope. Lack of sleep made my eyes constantly bloodshot. Coffee no longer worked. My stomach growled into the afternoon. But there was no other option. The fund was gone. The safety net, gone. If I wanted out of the trap my family built, I had to run. Even if I was running alone, through darkness, with nothing but bare hands. On Wednesday afternoon, as I was reorganizing the American fiction shelf, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Be home before 6, emergency meeting about the flowers. I stood still for a moment, not quite processing what I'd just read. An emergency? About flowers? Brian, the store manager and the only person here who knew anything about my family, glanced over. Another crisis? I showed him the text. Brian skimmed it, then let out a soft whistle. Oh, of course it has to be imported wedding flowers. Has to be the new collection from the Netherlands, not anything local, right? I didn't respond. I pressed my lips together and went back to shelving books like everything was fine. But in truth, I was shaking. 4 hours later, I got home. In the living room, my mom was flipping through a stack of bridal magazines while Nicole barked into her phone, her tone urgent and irritable. I don't care about the price. If you can't hold that shipment of blush peonies, I'll go somewhere else. My dad sat at the dining table, clutching a glass of water like it was a stiff drink. On the table lay a new floral budget proposal, with the total at $16,000. I stood frozen. Is this a joke? Mom looked up and gestured for me to sit, like this was a board meeting and I was the employee who arrived late. Evelyn, sit down. We need to talk. The flower prices have doubled. But Nicole can't change the color scheme. The bridesmaid dresses and table linens are already ordered. I stared at the three of them. My voice came out hoarse like gravel. 16,000? Just for flowers? Nicole shot me a glare. Don't start, you don't understand anything about tablescape aesthetics. I let out a laugh, dry and sharp, even I didn't recognize it. And here I thought I was spending every night writing scholarship applications, drinking coffee in place of meals just to afford the right to go to school, while you're obsessing over napkin shades like they determine lifelong happiness? My mom clasped her hands tightly, her expression tense like a pulled string. Evelyn, this isn't the time to blame anyone. Everyone's doing their best. Nicole is under a lot of pressure, too. Pressure? Picking the right seasonal bloom? I said coldly. Then change the season. Problem solved. Nicole stood up abruptly, her voice rising. You don't get to talk like that. I've waited 3 years for this wedding. 3 years for everything to be perfect. And I've waited my whole life for a chance at a real education, I shouted back. But no one cared. You all used my money, my grandmother's savings, to buy flowers and dresses and bridesmaid gifts. And now you call me back for an emergency meeting? Like I'm some kind of scheduling assistant? My dad slammed his hand on the table. Evelyn, you're crossing a line. I stood tall. For the first time, I didn't back down. No, I'm just drawing one. From now on, don't expect me at any more urgent meetings about centerpieces. If you can blow 16,000 on flowers, you can survive without me. I turned and walked away, leaving behind their stunned, furious expressions. In the pocket of my coat, I held tightly to the appointment slip for my meeting with Hope tomorrow morning. While my family obsessed over color palettes and wedding gowns, I was choosing documents and the law. And I wasn't sorry about it. The next morning, I arrived at Hope Westmore's office right on time. It was a red brick building tucked into the old commercial district of downtown Portland, with an unassuming exterior that looked like it only handled routine wills and property disputes. But I knew the moment I stepped through the glass doors. I was walking into something much bigger, something prepared long before I had the words to name it. Hope greeted me in a pale gray suit, her sharp features softened only slightly by a composed smile. We shook hands and she motioned for me to sit in a leather chair across from her desk. I've been waiting for this day, Evelyn, she said, setting a thick file tied with red string on the desk. And it looks like your grandmother was right all along. I swallowed, my palms cold. What did she do? More like what she saw coming, Hope replied, opening the file and sliding it toward me. This is a special clause she added to her will 3 years before she passed. Do you know why she included it? I shook my head. Because she knew she couldn't stop your parents from touching your education fund. So she didn't try to stop them, she set a trap. I looked at the bolded paragraph. All remaining assets in the estate, including retirement accounts and investment holdings, shall be permanently frozen if the education fund of Evelyn Morris is accessed without her written consent. I looked up, eyes wide. So that means... It means they cut off their own access, Hope said plainly. The moment they moved money from the education account to the wedding fund, this clause activated. The bank froze everything immediately. I sat in stunned silence. Part of me was in shock, but the rest felt oddly calm. Finally, someone in this family had truly protected me. Can they sue? They can try, but this clause was vetted by 3 independent attorneys. There are no loopholes, and the bank has already been informed. As of this morning. I clenched my hands in my lap. A part of me wanted to call home and yell, "See, this is what you did to yourselves." But I didn't. I simply looked at Hope and whispered, "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This is just the beginning," she replied, sliding another document across the desk. "This is the statement. As of now, they no longer have access to $82,000 your grandmother left behind. That includes the retirement accounts, government bonds, and several other investments." I stared at the number. In my mind, I saw tuition, housing, textbooks, a new beginning. And to regain access, they have to restore your education fund in full, including interest, she said steadily. If not, everything stays frozen. Permanently. The meeting ended with one final instruction. Stay silent, show no reaction, let them feel the consequences on their own. When I got home, the atmosphere was entirely different. The door was closed, curtains drawn. Mom was on the phone in the living room, her face tight with stress. Nicole paced back and forth, her voice tense as she spoke to someone on the other end. I went straight upstairs, no one noticed. Until my dad knocked on my door at 8 p.m., holding a printed letter from the bank. Evelyn, we need to talk. I didn't invite him in, but he came in anyway, placing the paper on my desk. Our accounts are frozen. The bank says there's some clause in your grandmother's will. Do you know anything about this? I looked at him, my voice barely above a whisper. I know. I just got back from the attorney's office. And you didn't think to tell us? The same way you didn't think to ask me before using my college fund? He went silent, his face going pale. After a moment, he sighed. Evelyn, your mom and I are struggling. Nicole needs this wedding. Your mother is under a lot of pressure. And what about me? I asked. I'm working 6 days a week, living off instant noodles, writing scholarship applications until 3 a.m. Is that not pressure? He didn't answer. I picked up the letter, folded it. Grandma put that in place to protect me, and I won't sign anything to save people who never once thought about my future. He gave a slow nod, then quietly stepped out of the room. As the door clicked shut, I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. I hadn't won, but I wasn't passive anymore. I had the law. I had Grandma's preparation. And now, I had time. Time to redraw my own path, even if it meant stepping through lavish weddings and accusing stares. On Saturday afternoon, Oregon drizzle hung low over the lake resort where Nicole's wedding was being held. Once a getaway for the Northwest's wealthy elite in the 1950s warm yellow lights. Warm yellow lights strung across the garden, tied with white ribbons to marble pillars, and candles scented with South American orchids filled the air. I stood quietly at the back row. My light blue dress wasn't striking, but it wasn't plain either. It was all I could afford after 3 weeks of part-time work at the bookstore and a small stash I had saved over the past year. My mom sat in the front row, eyes glistening with emotion. My dad stood beside her, face stiff. Nicole stepped into the garden like it was a runway. Her rhinestone gown glittered in the evening sun. The guests all turned, marveling. Everyone looked at Nicole, no one noticed me. And I was used to that. After the ceremony, guests moved into the reception hall. The tables were extravagant. Blush pink linens matching the bridesmaids' dresses, peonies centered exactly according to the designer's diagram. Clinking glasses, laughter, and sentimental speeches filled the room. I sat quietly near the exit door. And now, the MC announced, we invite close family members to share a few words for the bride and groom. My mother was first, speaking of her pride and joy, the daughter who waited patiently for this day with such grace. Then my father spoke of a milestone for the whole family. No one mentioned me, not a single person. Then came the MC's voice again. If any other family members would like to share something special for Nicole and Dante, now is the perfect time. I hadn't planned to speak, but my hands pushed back the chair on their own. The room seemed to freeze as I took the microphone, standing under the soft gold lights, facing a sea of curious faces. I took a deep breath. I'm Evelyn, the bride's younger sister. I won't speak long. I just wanted to share one small thing. I looked straight at Nicole, who was holding her champagne glass, her face uncertain. 3 months ago, I received an acceptance letter into the graduate program at Columbia University, with a full scholarship. But I can't go. My mother frowned, clearly confused. Nicole's expression tightened like I had just strayed off script. I continued, my voice even. I can't go because my entire college fund, the money Grandma saved for me before I could even read, was used to pay for wedding flowers, table linens, and a rhinestone dress. The air in the room turned cold. Forks hovered midair. One guest set down their glass with a loud clink. Nicole opened her mouth, but no words came out. My mother started to rise, ready to interrupt, but I turned, handed the mic back to the MC. I hope the two of you are truly happy. I mean that, I'm not joking. And then I walked away from the whispers, the stunned stares, and a room that never had a seat for me anyway. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked, one step at a time. Like I was finally stepping out of the shadow that had smothered me for years. In the hallway, I stopped and checked my phone. A message from Hope had arrived half an hour ago. Bank confirmed. They can no longer access any assets unless your education fund is fully restored. The next move is yours. I looked up at the high ceiling, where chandeliers reflected in the marble floor. A perfect place to host a wedding, but also the place where I lost something precious. Or maybe the place where I just took it back. I left the party behind. No one followed. No one called out. And for the first time in years, I truly felt myself moving forward. 3 weeks after the wedding, the Morris household had fallen eerily quiet. The phone didn't ring. No one discussed flowers, linens, or buffet menus. Only the buzz of the old heater and the shuffling of slippers echoed in the halls. I had moved out 10 days ago. A tiny room near campus. So cheap, it felt suspicious, but big enough for a desk and a mattress on the floor. I called it a beginning. They called it being dramatic. I didn't care. That afternoon, while entering sales data at the bookstore, my phone buzzed non-stop. A message from Nicole. Evelyn, Mom's freaking out. The bank denied another loan. Do you know what's going on? 5 minutes later, one from Dad. Call home. This is serious. Stop being stubborn. I read them with strange calm. No panic, no confusion. Just a sense of familiarity. This was how they always acted, only reaching for me when everything started to collapse. I didn't go home that night, but I did show up the next morning, carrying a folder Hope had sent me, the final bank update and a copy of the asset freeze clause. The door was slightly open. I pushed it gently. In the living room, my mother sat with a cold cup of tea, eyes sunken, hair unkempt, and not a trace of makeup. My father had just hung up the phone, his sigh echoing through the room. Evelyn, you're here, he said, like he'd been waiting for a lifeline to walk through the door. Nicole appeared from the kitchen, still in her pajamas. She looked at me with a mix of blame and hope in her eyes. You know what's going on, don't you? I didn't answer. I just placed the stack of documents on the glass coffee table. Gently, as if returning something that had been stolen a long time ago. My father picked it up, skimmed a few pages and frowned. What is this? Reality, I replied calmly. Grandma put in a protection clause, and it's been triggered. They made it very clear. Unless my college fund is fully restored, every remaining asset stays frozen. No negotiations. Nicole hissed. But that's Grandma and Grandpa's money. I turned to her. No, that was my money. Created for my future. Not for your wedding. Not for letterpress menus or $3,000 bridesmaid dresses. My mother broke down in tears, burying her head in her hands. We're about to lose the house. They denied our refinancing request. Everything is falling apart. I said nothing. Don't you feel anything? My dad asked, for the first time truly looking lost. This is your family. And when you emptied my college fund? Did anyone feel anything then? No one answered. I stood, slinging my bag over my shoulder. I didn't come here to argue. I just wanted you to know. The law doesn't care about emotion. Grandma left a clear condition, and she was right not to trust any of you. Nicole collapsed into a chair. Dante went back to his mother's house, says he, doesn't want to be dragged into this mess. Mom told me to apologize to you, but I'm tired, really tired. I said nothing. I just turned and walked out of the house I grew up in, the place I once believed was home. Until I realized it was just a stage for a play I was never meant to star in. That afternoon, I received an email from Columbia University. Congratulations! You've been selected for the Library Management Internship Program. The support package includes tuition and basic living expenses for the first academic year. I smiled. Not big, not overwhelmed, just a small, genuine smile. Because I knew I had made it one step further down a path that was mine. No begging, no pleading, just standing firm. And keeping the promise I made to myself. That evening, I was writing my project proposal for the Digital Library Initiative, my first internship assignment at Columbia, when the doorbell rang. The knock was firm, insistent, not like a delivery. I glanced out the window. It was my father. He stood there holding an envelope, his face heavy like he'd just swallowed a block of ice. I opened the door without a word. He extended the envelope, avoiding my eyes. Your mother thought, if you read this, maybe you'd understand. It's the waiver. If you sign it, everything can go back to the way it was. I looked at him, feeling hollow. Back to the way it was? You mean me fading into the background, letting others decide the course of my life? He bit his lip but said nothing. Finally, he exhaled. We need the money, Evelyn. The house is on the verge of foreclosure. Your mom can't sleep. Nicole's on anxiety meds. This family is falling apart. I nodded without smiling. And I'm the support beam you want to lean on again? He shoved the envelope into my hand and walked quickly down the steps. I didn't call after him. I knew in a few days Nicole would show up. And I was right. 3 days later, I had just come home from work when a loud knock shook my door barely 10 minutes after I shut it. Nicole stood there, her hair a mess, face gaunt, lipstick still bright red. She stormed in without asking. I thought you were smart enough to understand what's important, she yelled. Mom's about to lose the house. Dad had to put up the car as collateral. I lost my husband and my reputation. And you, living in a dirt-cheap apartment acting like you've won? I didn't respond. I simply picked up the envelope Dad had left days earlier and set it on the table. You're here to get me to sign this? Not get worn. Nicole stepped closer. If you don't sign, I'm not responsible for what happens next. Mom and Dad will cut you off. You'll be seen as the ungrateful child. I looked at her, my voice steady. They cut me off the moment they took my college fund, Nicole. Everything you're trying to save? It's just the illusion of a family. Nicole screamed. You're cruel. Then suddenly, without warning, her hand lashed out and slapped me across the face. One side of my cheek burned. I didn't flinch, I didn't step back. I simply looked into her eyes and spoke softly, like a breeze. Thank you, for proving Grandma was right. Nicole froze. I gently touched my cheek, not breaking eye contact. She once told me, people show you who they truly are when they can no longer control you. I'm not reacting, 'cause now I understand. She didn't respond. Her hands shook, her eyes no longer angry, they were frightened. Not of me, but of herself. I can forgive you, Nicole. Truly, I said slowly. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, or fixing things that were never my fault. Nicole took a step back. Then what do you want? I don't want anything from you anymore. I just want to live without anyone taking what was mine from the beginning. I'm no longer the gatekeeper to your happiness. She turned away, shoulders trembling. Whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. As she left, I stood in silence for a long time. No tears, no shaking. I just felt peace. The next day, I went to Attorney Hope's office with a copy of the documents in hand. I didn't need to sign anything. I just wanted confirmation to be absolutely sure that no one could alter the clause that had been put in place. Hope looked at me and nodded in approval. You did the right thing. Forgiveness is your right, but never let them turn it into an obligation. I smiled, just slightly, but enough to notice in the mirror that my eyes no longer carried the same darkness. One October afternoon, while I was reorganizing books in my small rental apartment near campus, the mailman knocked on my door. A cream-colored envelope was handed to me, no return address, only a familiar, soft handwriting across the front. For Evelyn, when you're ready. I sat down by the table, hands trembling slightly as I opened the envelope yellowed with time. Inside was a letter, written in Grandma's handwriting. Though she had passed nearly 2 years ago, I could still picture her sitting by the window in her wooden chair, reading glasses slipping down her nose, fountain pen in hand, writing each word with patience and love. My dear Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means you've stepped out of the shadow they forced you to live in. They'll say you're ungrateful, cold, heartless. But I know very well that you're simply reclaiming what was always meant to be yours. You are not the sacrifice. You are the light. And sometimes, light must be protected from those who don't understand its value. Don't let them dim you again. Live. Write your own story, not their script. I love you, Grandma. I folded the letter, held it to my chest, and sat in silence for a long time. The next afternoon, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, there was a knock at the door. Softer this time, slower. I opened it to find Nicole. No makeup, no fancy clothes. She wore jeans and a simple sweater, empty-handed, her face tired but her eyes softer than the last time we met. Evel, can I come in? I hesitated, then nodded. Nicole sat in the chair across from me in the small kitchen, looking around for a long moment before speaking. I didn't come here to ask for anything, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. No excuses, no strings. I said nothing. I let her continue. Everything fell apart faster than I thought. After Dante left, Mom didn't speak to me for a week. Dad started drinking again. That's when I realized I'd been put on a pedestal all these years without ever learning how to stand on my own. I didn't know what was real or what was enough. She looked up. But what I do know is that I was wrong to you. I'm not here to beg for forgiveness. I just needed you to know. For the first time in my life, I see you. Truly see you. I nodded slowly, holding back tears. Thank you for saying that. And I want to make something clear too, Nicole. I didn't do all this for revenge. I didn't want to watch you all suffer just to feel superior. I didn't. I looked straight at her. This was justice. And freedom. Freedom from playing the role of the sacrificial one. Freedom to walk forward without being shackled by expectations that were never mine to carry. Nicole nodded silently. After a pause, she stood. Thank you for listening. You're the strongest person I know. I won't bother you again. I hope you live exactly the way you want. I walked her to the door. For the first time in years, there was no bitter silence, no sharp words between us. Just a quiet space. Enough to allow something new to begin, if, one day, we both wanted it. When I returned to my desk, I opened my laptop, scrolled through work emails, and stopped at a message from the department office. An invitation to join a field scholar program at a historic library in Boston. I clicked register with a light heart. I still don't know what's ahead. But for the first time, I'm not afraid. I pulled out a notebook from the drawer. On the first page was a quote Grandma told me when I was 15, on the day I wanted to quit school because I was being compared to Nicole. You don't need anyone's permission to shine. I picked up a pen and wrote on a new page. Chapter 1. Freedom doesn't come from rebellion, but from daring to step outside the frame others built for you. And this time, the story is mine. Written by me. Chosen by me. Lived by me. Evelyn's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, to truly find ourselves, we must step out from the shadow of misplaced expectations. Forgiveness doesn't mean returning, and love doesn't mean unconditional sacrifice. In a world where many are hurt by the very people meant to protect them, Evelyn chose to rise, not to destroy, but to reclaim the right to live her life on her own terms. What do you think about Evelyn's decision? Is forgiveness without returning the strongest way to move forward? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more real, moving stories about family and self-discovery.